Okay, so the assignment is to start with an input an array of numbers, uh, integers, I guess, although it didn't specify. Um, but we'll just say integers. They're sorted in order from least to greatest, and uh, each there are doubles. The doubles are together. So an example would be something like this. Okay, so that's an example. So all the doubles are together and they're in order from least to greatest, and there's one solo unique number. In this case, our number is 4. Um, so we'll have a function. Um, and we're going to recursively call it. So I think it's easier just to not return anything. So we'll just do void, and we can call it find solo. Okay, and it's going to take in some parameters. It's going to take in our array of numbers. It's going to take in the low point and the high point, and those two things are going to change as we recursively call it. We're gonna send in the same array every time, but we're gonna change the part of the array that we're looking at, and we're hopefully going to refine the search. We're gonna use basically a binary search, and so we're gonna be jumping to the midpoint based on the lows and the highs. So first things we're gonna do is we're gonna go here, and then we're gonna look around here, and then depending on what we find, we might either go here and go to this midpoint in this section, and then further refine it, or we might go here, further refine it, and get more and more granular. So we need a low point and a high point. Our low and our high. And when we call this, so we have our main function down here. Oh, I get nauseous looking through the camera on the phone. In our main function, we're going to take in some input. We're going to take in the array. That's my cat. And we're going to call this find solo. I should call it the Han solo function. We're going to toss in our array of numbers. When we first call it, the low is going to be 0 because it's our 0th element. And then our high is going to be basically the length of the array minus 1. So we go here, we retrieve our parameters. The first thing we're going to do, so since we're using it to do a search and recursively call itself, we're basically going to be narrowing it down each time and adjusting the lows and the highs so that by the end of it, low and the high should be the same number. And once we got to that point, then that's the number we're looking for. So we can even say, we can start it out, we can say if low equals high, print or cout or whatever language, the element is, and you could say low or high, I guess it wouldn't matter here. I'm going to leave off the semicolons because they look like J's when I write them. So that would be like our thing that tells us we're done. But the first thing we have to do is find our midpoint. We have our low, our high, we have to find our midpoint. So int mid is going to be, we're basically just going to take the average, I guess, of the two, of the low and the high. So we could just do low plus high divided by 2. Okay, and so the way this works in the array is before we get to the element that's non-repeating, all the even elements are the first time the double number occurs. and all the odd elements are the second time the double, the same number gets repeated. However, after we've passed this non-repeating element, that changes, and all the odd numbered elements are the first time that the new number occurs, and the even ones are the second time. So 0 and 2 were the first time, elements 0 and 2 are the first time that 1 and 3 occur. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then element 5 is the first time this number 5 occurs. 7 is the first time 7 occurs. So that's what makes this whole thing work. So what we can do is we can say, if first we'll check and see if the midpoint is divisible by 0, and based on that we can refine our search either way. So we can do if modulo, if mid modulo, if there's no remainder, if it's equal to 0. I'm going to write an else here so I don't forget. So if that's the case, then we do a nested conditional statement, and we can say if array, so we go here, and then we say if the one above it, if the mid is equal to the one above it, so mid plus 1, if array mid equals array mid plus 1, then we, just write this else here, then we will recursively call find solo and give it new parameters. We're going to use the same array though, so I guess I could just make that a global variable. That would save memory, I guess. But well, anyway, since we've already looked at mid and mid plus 1, we can jump up to mid plus 2, and that will be our new low. And then we keep high as is. If that's not the case, if they do not equal each other, then we can look down. We can do low, so we go back to 0 in this case because it's still the first time through, going to our second time through. So then low, we put in low, and now we're looking in the bottom half of the array. We're still keeping mid because we've only compared mid to the thing above it. We haven't compared to the thing below it yet. So mid becomes the new high. If the middle element is not divisible by 2, then changes a little bit. Then we look at then we are gonna compare it the other way. We're gonna compare mid to mid. We're gonna compare to mid, the one below it, mid minus 1. So and if that's the case, then we call in all these situations we're gonna call the function recursively, because we always check it at the very beginning up here. Okay, that means array. So we've looked at mid minus 1, so now we're going to go another step below. We're going to look at mid minus 2, and that becomes our new low. We keep high, and then if that's not the case, then we call the find solo function again recursively. We toss in the array. We keep low in this case, and then we're just looking at mid. No, because we've looked at mid and mid minus 1. So we want to compare mid minus 1 to mid minus 2. So we're going to do mid minus 1. Okay. So that's the function. This is main down here. This is what we send it. We send these parameters in. It checks first to see if low and high are the same. If that's the case, then we found our element that's non-repeating. Otherwise, we figure out what the midpoint is, and then we're going to figure out which 4 of these pathways to go based on the circumstances, based on the element that we're on, and so forth. So that's it. Okay, bye.